pleasure to introduce Peggy McCullough. She's the WTP Project Director. Of course, she's with Bechtel, and they are our presenting sponsor. So let's thank Bechtel again for their support for this luncheon today. And let's bring Peggy up to introduce our featured speaker, President Schulz.
Thank you, Fran. Good afternoon. Many people in the room may be familiar with Bechtel, but for those of you who may not, we're a global engineering and construction company. We're a 118-year-old privately held company with 55,000 non-manual employees worldwide. And we've completed more than 25,000 projects on all 7 continents. Working with our customers, and my customer is here today, Kevin Smith, we deliver landmark projects and modern marvels that foster sustainable progress and grow economies. Some projects that you may recognize, the Channel Tunnel rail link between the UK and France, Tacoma Narrows Bridge, the stabilization and new safe confinement of the destroyed reactor at Chernobyl, the fissile material storage facility in Mayak, Russia, and we successfully submitted the license application for Yucca Mountain, which was at that time intended to be the nation's long-term repository for commercial spent nuclear fuel. Locally here, we completed Energy Northwest Columbia Generating Station, and we completed 13 years of cleanup as Bechtel Hanford. So we've been in this community a long time, had a permanent presence here since 1994. Since 2001, we have been responsible for the design, procurement, construction, and commissioning of the waste treatment plant, or the VIT plant, as it's commonly called. And that mission requires hundreds of engineers and many other degreed professionals. We're talking about project managers, accountants, construction professionals, quality professionals, project controls. And as you might imagine, with that employee base and the challenge of our mission, we look to Washington State University for the next generation of employees. And in fact, today we have about 250 WSU grads on the project. WSU is one of only 20 institutions worldwide that Bechtel partners with, considers it a university partner. And WSU and other partner universities are institutions where the curricula and the student enrollment are most likely to produce the graduates that we need to complete our projects. Our low-activity waste project manager, Scott Neubauer, is here today, and WSU and Go Cougs is frequently rings out in meetings at WTP, and he's a primary example of that. I've watched him do it many, many times. There you go. So we've watched with pride the investment WSU has made in the Tri-Cities, most recently the Viticulture and Enology Program and the Wine Science Center, which we were just discussing here at the table, and now the first set of permanent on-campus housing for students. We also look forward to hosting WSU medical students in the Tri-Cities as well. And we're sure our speaker today will come to appreciate the Tri-Cities as much as we do. It's my pleasure to introduce President Schulz. He's the 11th president of WSU. He previously served 7 years as president of Kansas State University, where he had an impressive list of accomplishments. And for a few more months, he'll continue to serve as chairman of the NCAA Board of Governors. He's a chemical engineer by training and has served in a number of leadership roles supporting his profession and the communities in which he's lived. And now he's guiding WSU's transformation into one of the nation's top 25 research universities, one that offers exceptional research and innovation and a transformative educational experience to undergraduate and graduate students. It's a tall order, but one that the Tri-Cities and Bechtel is here to support. So please join me in welcoming WSU President Kirk Schulz.
Thank you. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things I want to visit with you about today. The Drive to 25, our grand challenges from a research point of view, some research and student initiatives. Talk a little bit about the medical school, where we are with that. We're also in the middle of some leadership searches, and then we've had several very successful building projects that we have as well going on across all of our campuses. So our overarching goal is to be recognized as a top 25 public public research university by the year 2030. Now, you can say, well, that maybe sounds like an excellent goal, but where are you today? As I was doing my research on Washington State as part of the interview process for president, looked at a lot of data and information about the institution. And what I found largely was that we're ranked somewhere between 45 and 50 compared with public research universities. And when you start to think about what kind of goal do you want to set, as you all know, for whatever organizations you represent, you want to pick something that's going to have everybody to stretch a little bit. As a matter of fact, I think you want something that has everybody squirming a little bit in the seat and saying, man, I'm not sure if we can do that or not. We could have picked a much lower type of goal that still would have been wonderful for the institution, but at the end of the day, if we can find a way to get our several thousand employees and faculty and students all looking in the same direction, I think it's really critical for the institution. Now, I've had several people, when they've heard this the first time, go, well, what about the undergraduate program? A public research university is great, but, Washington State has a history of doing a great job with producing terrific, work-ready undergraduate students. A public research university is the bucket that we compare ourselves with. We've been a public research university for over 125 years, so this part of it isn't new. But the aspirational part of where we would like to be is certainly very new and certainly very important for us to think about. The other thing that I'd like to share are two more things on this, is that if you look at states out there that we as a state are competing against, places like Michigan and Texas and other states like that, one of their characteristics is two highly ranked research universities. University of Washington is a fantastic research university that in many regards is in the top 4 or 5 public research universities, if not the United States, certainly the world. What we want is Washington State to elevate ourselves as well, not to be the same as UW, but if we look at Michigan and Michigan State, or Texas and Texas A&M, University of Virginia, Virginia Tech, two excellent schools that have very different styles about them, but at the same time are important to the state's economic development. The other thing, and I'm a Virginia Tech graduate, that's why I mentioned that as one of those great universities. The other thing is, if we look out there and you say, what difference does it make to be a top 25 school? If I can graduate and have a cost-effective education and be able to go do great things, what difference does it really make? Well, when I went to Virginia Tech, the admission standard was largely if you could pay your tuition. And they would let you into engineering school, and the idea was it's easy to get into, hard to get out of. That there was a very high standard, and we would do it that particular way. Today, they have a top 20 engineering school. My diploma is kind of worth more today than it was when I graduated. What we want to do is the same for the Washington State students. I want any industry or corporation out there, if they're going to hire one person, that they say, hey, if I could just get a Washington State University graduate, that's who I'd like. So that's when we talk about the top 25 and drive to 25 and raising our visibility, I want you to think about its economic development, its value in the marketplace for our students. It's elevating and looking out for where we would like to help the state of Washington go at each of our campuses. So how are you going to measure your success? As an engineer and somebody with a quantitative background, oftentimes higher ed is infamous for picking a goal. Hey, we're going to do this, or we're going to be this place. And you say, how are you going to measure it? And they say, well, we're going to do this. To me, if you can't describe how you're going to measure it, and doesn't require a 45-minute presentation to do that, you haven't honed your goals enough so that you can really do this effectively. So we're going to pick 8 to 10 metrics. 7 of those, 6 to 7, will be higher education specific. There'll be things like annual giving, freshman to sophomore retention ratio, research volume, things like this that any university out there measures. We're going to pick several others that are going to be very aggressive that we think are very particular to Washington State University. So one is likely to be % of undergraduates involved in research and scholarship. Now, that doesn't mean just the people in the STEM fields. We want our students in English, in the social sciences, at the Murrow School of Communications to also be involved and engaged in scholarship. So we want to have an experience there that we think is going to be an added value to the marketplace. One of the other things that we're really proud of is about a third of the incoming students to Washington State across all of our campuses, averaged together, are underrepresented minority students. That's fantastic. It's more reflective of the state of Washington as a whole. If you say, well, Kirk, what about your faculty and staff? We have made essentially zero progress in the last decade at diversifying our faculty and staff. So we're going to put a goal out there that is going to be focused around diversifying our faculty and staff at all of our campuses. If we do the same thing we've been doing for the last 10 years, it's not going to work. We need to bring the power of a lot of creative people within the university system to bear, and I think you'll see great progress in this. But when we initially come out with, say, here's where we are now, there are going to be some people go, well, that doesn't look very good. But to me, you can't get better until you say, here's where we are, and you have a plan moving forward. So how can you help? At your table, you have this little package here. It's useful if your table rocks, you can stick it under one of the legs. That's not what it's really there for. But you take a Drive to 25 little bracelet here, and this is required wearing this in the president's house. So my wife and I and dog all have these. But inside the package here is a variety of brag cards. And what this talks about some of the great things that are happening at the institution. And we already are top 25 in several areas. The power engineering program at Washington State is probably one of the top 2 or 3 in the country. We can go through our catalysis efforts that we work with Steve and his folks on at Pacific Northwest National Lab is one of the top in the country. We have other things where we're really good. We just haven't told the story very well. So part of what this is trying to tell that story better, certainly across the state. And in there's a brag card, a comment card. And I would urge you to go online to fill out and give us your suggestions. What do you think is important about Washington State University being ranked as a top 25? What concerns do you have? What things do you think we need to be thinking about? You can fill it out. You can give it to Keith or anybody from Washington State if you want to do it by pen. But otherwise, just go online to the Drive to 25 website. It's available from our home page, and you can fill that out. So the advantage, too, of the little cards in there is we can swap those out as great things happen institutionally. Well, one of the other challenges we have in higher education is people talk about that you can't be everything to everybody. You got to pick some things that you're going to be really good at. So in the year that Dan Bernardo served as interim president, the university went, along with our vice president for research, Chris Keene, to say what are going to be some research objectives for the institution. What are the key areas that we think we can be really good at? And they did a 120-day study, and it came up with these research grand challenges in several areas: sustaining health, sustainable resources, opportunity and equity, smart systems, and national security. And any of you organizationally know if you do these type of things, it's really hard to get it right. You either get so specific that half your people say, you know what, this doesn't apply to me, so I don't think they're very good. Or you get so super broad that everybody fits under the tent, they feel good and said, well, you went through this exercise and didn't really do anything. I think they hit the mark here in the middle of picking some things that we have some expertise. Now, ideas are great, but budget's got to follow ideas. And so one of the things that the university did this last year is took a percentage cut internally, pooled those resources, and then divvied them back out based on an internal proposal review process. And what we found was we had a $29 million total investment in some of these multidisciplinary research projects. So all of them had to have at least 2 colleges involved. In other words, it couldn't be just give it to chemical engineering because we're really good. We did get a few of those proposals. But they had to be ones that had faculty across multiple disciplines to try and break down the disciplinary barriers. And in the back of the room, you're certainly not going to be able to see all these, and that's not important. But really a lot of it is this is an investment in people. It's an investment in these particular ideas. And it's using our resources that we have, we think, more effectively to build out areas where we can be internationally renowned. So these research projects are good, but one of the other things that came up is we had some student success initiatives. And the dollar figure is not here. It's about a $13 million investment in student success initiatives. One of the challenges that higher education has is we measure freshman to sophomore retention ratio and all these types of things. The bottom line is we want to put things in place so every student that enrolls graduates in 4 or 5 years. That's your goal. Almost nobody ever gets there, but we need to do better. And so what we did is we have a couple programs put in place to work with faculty support and parental interventions when students are struggling. We have a lot, 40% of our students at Washington State are first generation. Still today, 40%. So what happens is sometimes folks call home, did poorly on a test, and somebody says, well, Kirk, maybe you're just not cut out for college. It doesn't mean that the parents are ignorant or stupid or anything like that. It just comes down to a lack of experience in those particular areas. So what should a parent tell a student that's struggling? Those are the types of things we want to do. Also, peer mentoring programming and advising to upper division students is increasingly important. You would think we lay out a template. That's when I was a student. They handed it to me in engineering school on the first day. You had a bunch of boxes. They had each quarter which you had to take. Advising wasn't that hard. You just took the classes. It's interesting today, students will go and they'll drop a class. And they're fine, and then they'll drop another one next semester. Well, after you do that for 4 semesters now, you're 12 credits down, it's another semester. So you can look, and it's just these incremental things that people don't look at the broad scheme of things, and all of a sudden somebody goes, well, you're not doing a very good job. Students are taking more than 4 years to graduate. Why is that? Those are the types of things we need to do better on. The med school. Many of you know that we recently received preliminary accreditation for the Elson Floyd School of Medicine. And what's critical about this is we could not start recruiting students until we got that preliminary accreditation. And the recruitment period is done on a national basis. So students fill out an application, you send it into a clearinghouse, and you can check off what med school you're interested in, and that's how it goes. That closes December 1. So most other medical schools have been out recruiting students since this summer. So we opened our application portal yesterday, and we have 274 applications overnight. Yes. And just to remember that initial class size is 60. So we'll probably have over 1,000 applications that have to be sorted through to get down to that class of 60. A couple key things to remember about the med school. The first is that those 60 students will spend the first 2 years in Spokane, and then years 3 and 4 out in the different communities that are associated with Washington State University. So 3 years from now, we'll have 15 medical students that will be here full-time, not doing a 2-week rotation, but living in this community for their last 2 years of their medical school experience. Additionally, the first year, so a year from now, the students do a week at each of those different locations, and one of the key programs that we have is called a billeting program, where families volunteer to host a medical student for a week in those different communities. So next year at this time, we'll start seeing a bunch of medical students around here with the WSU on their lab coats, and really excited about this. But it's very important to remember that it's a community-based program. So we'll have medical students here in Tri-Cities, in Spokane, in Vancouver, and at Everett. We also are continually doing leadership development, and we just hired a vice president for finance and administration. We had a person serving very capably in an interim position. We just hired away the vice president for finance and administration from Boise State University. She's been there for like 20 years. Fantastic candidate. We were really lucky to get her, and she'll start after the first of the year. One of the challenges we've had at Washington State is we're very humble. We're happy to do a great job and let people recognize that. But I will say one of the challenges is we have not told our story of success broadly and widely enough. We have never had a vice president for marketing and communications. So we're doing a national search now to bring in that first person to take the great things that our faculty are doing at all of our campuses and make sure that we're letting everybody know that. We have the world's best wine science research center right here in the Tri-Cities. Everybody across the country needs to know about that. And those are the types of things that everybody did a great job putting that together. A lot of people in the room supported that. I found out about it as a land grant president because I was interviewing for a job here. And those are the kinds of things that I just want somebody waking up every morning saying, how do we tell the WSU story widely and much better. Then we also are doing a search for Vice President of Student Affairs and 2 deans, 2 of our critical colleges, the Boylan College of Engineering and Architecture, as well as Connors, which is Ag, Natural Resources. Anyway, I never get it quite right if I don't read it, but Human Sciences, Agriculture, and Environmental Sciences, those particular areas. So those are 2 of our critical colleges, so great leadership opportunities. And then finally, in the last 2 slides here, we're going to continue to build out our campus, not just in Pullman. Each of our campuses has different needs. And here in the Tri-Cities, as you all probably saw, we recently did groundbreaking for our first residential facility here for students at WSU Tri-Cities. We're building a student union here. And if I go around to each of those different campuses, we all have building needs for research, for teaching, for things like that. And we need to continue to be aggressive in that particular space. So we have several things under construction. Depending on what campus you're on, it's hard to miss. But moving forward, we're not going to be able to build things by simply going to Olympia and just getting dollars. Well, certainly it's important that we have great state support for public higher education, but if Keith tells me what he needs here, and then Mel Netzhammer tells me what he needs in Vancouver, and we go around to each of the campuses, there's not enough resources to make all those building projects that are needed happen. So the way we're going to have to do that was philanthropy, with public-private partnerships, with things like the Wine Science Center, the way we're doing housing here. Those are the types of things that we have to do in addition to being aggressive with getting state support for public higher education. So folks, it's awesome to be here. Very, very proud of our campus in the Tri-Cities. I think Fran mentioned I've been here 4 times already. I've made a commitment on a quarterly basis to spend quality time on each of our campuses, and I think moving forward, it's hard for me to lead the institution if you don't know it. And while I need to be in Pullman, it's really important that I'm out in the community and hear what things you think are important as Washington State University moves ahead. So with that, I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I'd love to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Great.
Third generation Coug, just graduated, 4th generation. One of our biggest frustrations, as was mine during college, was the GRUs, general undergrad requirements. They seem to be the same as when I went in 1980 versus 2008 that she went. Is there any kind of development plan or anything? Because her biggest frustration was I didn't get enough time, or I didn't get enough opportunity because I had to take these GRUs to really get into my field a whole lot more and take a lot more classes. Any kind of revamp plans or anything looking at these GRUs and saying, hey, look, American history isn't exactly the GRU that needs to be taken anymore. They learn it in high school. They can watch Discovery Channel, something like that. It's just the money could be better spent, in my opinion, by having more in-depth learning in their fields versus taking general requirements.
Yeah, that's the first time I've ever gotten that question, by the way. That's cool. So thank you. And since the provost isn't here, I can give all kinds of answers because this doesn't actually report to me. There's a couple key things, though. I think there's a lot of, philosophically, there's a lot of squeeze in the marketplace to say get graduates out quicker, especially in the technical fields. Why do we bother with all that humanities and stuff like that? Just whack that out and you can get people out quicker. And I think we've resisted that strongly because we do feel that those classes that seem useless now, generally, a lot of people will say later in life, do add some breadth to their educational experience. Now, should they be exactly the same ones that you and I took when we were in school about the same time? I can argue they need to continually be changing and things like that. So do we need to look at that stuff? Absolutely. But I do think it really has some value. And some of those courses I took at the time, and I was an engineering student, so I tried to take the easiest ones I could find, easy A classes, not what they were teaching because I thought the instructor was easy. And I was very successful at that too, by the way. I think now I look back and there was probably some times that I might have picked a class there that actually had something that would have given me some depth besides an A on the transcript that would have been helpful. But I think we'll continue to look at that, but frankly, I don't see any wholesale changes in the concept. The courses, yes. The concept of taking those, probably not. Yes?
Strong nuclear culture in this community, and we've often been asked, why isn't there a nuclear engineering program here? You have a reactor, one of the best in the country, so have you considered expanding to a nuclear engineering program?
We're doing that search for the Dean of Engineering right now, and I think that's when we identify he or she to come in, I think those are the kind of questions that we need to ask. There's several engineering disciplines that I'm curious of why we don't have them given our size and scope and what's happening in the state of Washington even, whether the west side or here. So the answer is we've got a lot of the pieces in place to have it. Most of the time places can't do it because they don't have the nuclear reactor, and we've got that in Pullman. Plus, we've got a lot of expertise here in the Tri-Cities that also would represent a really good opportunity for us. So the bottom line is I think we'll consider that, but I need to wait until our next dean comes in and see what he or she thinks is the right direction to take.
Kirk, you might ask Mr. Ferguson if his question comes with a potential private grant to fund it.
Yeah.
Do I understand that right?
Okay, thank you.
Another question? Yes.
You have another land-grant institution 8 miles away. Do you see much collaboration with the University of Idaho?
So yeah, it's absolutely, that's really interesting because it's a unique, I don't know anywhere else in the country that has two land-grant universities with agriculture and engineering and all that stuff, literally 7 to 8 miles apart, depending on how you count. We have had a bit of a rocky relationship with the University of Idaho over the years. I had dinner with their president and the provost, and all of us got together with spouses one evening and talked a lot about this. And there was a history over a long number of years of Washington State wanting to do something, and then sort of we saw a better dance partner and dropped them like a hot rock. And so they've got a little bit of, because we're better funded, we're larger, we have a much larger research portfolio. I think that's influenced it. So what we want to do is start at the beginning. And so basically my chief of staff is working with somebody at the University of Idaho in the provost's office to delineate what things we do together, what things we could do better, and what are some areas of opportunity. One of the best areas that we think of opportunity is in the research library area. There is no reason for us to have the same serials 8 miles apart. We can't both afford it. So what we want to do is see if there's some things that we can do like that where everybody has borrowing privileges back and forth. And if you lived in a large city, nobody thinks of going 7 or 8 miles. It takes you 10 minutes as being difficult. So there's some things like that that I think you're going to see come out. And we're actually going to do a ceremony and kind of have a formal MOU of talking about the things that we're going to do back and forth. But I think you'll see a lot more out of that in the next 6 months.
Question over here.
Relationship with the University of Washington.
Other questions? No. It's one of the things that I saw as an opportunity coming in as president is to repair some of the relationships with the University of Washington. And without going into lots of reasons why they were what they were, the two CEOs certainly set the tone. And Anna-Marie and I have met. We've had dinner a couple times. We've talked about working together. And I think if you watch the rhetoric coming out of both institutions, both of us are talking about this publicly. And, we're always going to want to compete in athletics and for students and things like that. But particularly in research projects, and just the recent announcement with your organization and the two of us, I would like to start at the beginning of the year, us monthly, putting out something to the state of Washington about one project that both institutions are doing together. And there's all three. Yeah, we can do that one as well. But part of it is we can talk about working together, but if we don't ever give anybody any information about things that we're doing, they'll see just athletics and things like that. So what we want to do is compete on the athletic field in a competitive way, but we want to talk about the research that we're jointly doing that benefits the state so that people do see that the two large research institutions are cooperating, playing together, and helping advance the state's economy. So.
Any other questions?
Well, folks, thank you, and let's beat Arizona this weekend. Thank you.
It's now my pleasure to ask up Laura Powell from our own neck of the woods here and a current regent on the Board of Regents at WSU. Laura, come on up.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and it's so great to have Kirk here in the Tri-Cities the fourth time. I want to just say a few words. When we were looking for the next president of Washington State University, we had an amazing pool of people, and some people say, well, that's because, you know, you offered a medical school, but it was part because we were on a trajectory forward. We had a lot going on. But one person rose to the top, and that was Kirk Schulz. And you know, there were things that I particularly was looking for. I mean, you have a whole panel, people are looking for different things. There were two things I was looking for. Was number one, somebody that really looked broadly across all the campuses of WSU in a way that would build them for the future, because there's so much potential. And he clearly demonstrated that at Kansas State, and that was very encouraging. The other thing was really, where he really rose to the top, in my view, is that he came to the interview with the regents with a vision already beginning to form. And, you know, you see that the way it is the state now in Drive to 25. And one of the things he has done in beginning to form that, he's very much the person who connects out all through the network. And of course, Washington State University is in every single county in this state. So he has been literally, I don't know how he has time to do it all, but he's been all over the state talking to people about this and encourage them to send input. So I really hope that you will think about what you want to see WSU to be in the future, and send in some input either on those cards or online. But so, and when you think all this is going on, and he's only been here for 4 months, but he really truly hit the ground running, and I think we're going to see some really exciting things in the future. And one of the other things that I think is really great, I mean, you've experienced a sense of humor, which is always wonderful, but it's really that he believes in transparency. So what you see is what you get. And, you know, one of the things he's made very clear is his support for WSU Tri-Cities in this community. So I think we have great things to look forward to, great things to come. So it's my pleasure to serve on the Board of Regents and to work with you, Kirk. Thank you.
Let's see. We're up to door prizes. We have some things to give away. This is from Ken Fincher at WSU Tri-Cities. What do you have, Tracy Joe? A double stack. And they're cold.
And they're cold. And those are the winners.
The winners are here?
The winners are here.
So the first name can pick the flavor?
That's right.
Jermaine Jones, Frontier Communications. Come up and pick your cheese. And Glenn Welch from Cadillac Regional Medical Center. Glenn? He's gone? Do you have to be present to win, or will the cheese keep?
Let's see.
It's canned cheese.
Okay, who can? Oh. It is canned cheese. All right, Kirk. Quick. A question from your presentation. Whoever can answer it. Okay, how about, what's the website for Drive to 5? You can.
No, I said.
I've tried 25.
Get them in the cheese.
I know. Number of applicants for medical school. 274. 274. Who said that?
Sprouted cheese, Tracy Joe? Next, I want to thank our sponsors. The presenting sponsor is Bechtel, and the supporting sponsor is Washington River Protection Solutions. And I want to thank all of you for attending today, and also thank our president. Kirk, thank you so much for coming. Go Cougs!